My bike is about to approach 80,000 kilometres. Still going well, but I thought it might be time to check those valve clearances again, just to see whether they've moved. So, just for the exercise, I'm going to start the stopwatch and just see how long it takes to get the job done. This is the third time I've checked the valve clearances. I checked it first at about 20,000 and they did need adjustment. A couple of them were tight. You can see the original video at the end. I've got a link there. I did the second test at around 40,000 I think, and they hadn't moved. And so I'm wondering whether there'll be any movement this time. If you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know that I make at least one major mistake every time I do maintenance, and this is the one I made on this one. I'm thinking, oh, that wasn't too bad. Just a little bit of a spill, fix that up, no problem. Move on. The radiator's easy to remove, but the undoing the plug for the fan is the fiddle part, and that's what I'm doing here, trying to get in to undo that electrical plug. Once I've done that, everything's all right. But it's now I realise what an idiot I am. I thought I'll save myself a couple of minutes by not taking the bash plate off the bottom. Little did I realise that half the fluid ran into the bash plate and then started coming out the back and made a huge mess all over the shed floor. Yeah, well, clean that up. No accounting for stupidity in this garage. Right now I'm thinking to myself, I wish there was a vaccine for stupidity, but unfortunately there isn't. So, after that avoidable disruption, I'm back to doing the real job again. Having a wheelie chair is so good when you're working on something, particularly when you're old and decrepit like me. The business of getting down and then getting back up again can be a real challenge otherwise. Alrighty then, that seemed like a fair bit of faffing around, but it isn't really, particularly if you do it right the first time and don't spill fluid all over the ground. And after removing the 3 bolts, the tappet cover comes off. And look at how clean it is in there. After 80,000 kilometres, absolutely beautiful. And even after addressing that major spill, it's still only about 18 minutes to get to the valve tappets. And again, look at how beautiful and clean it is. No evidence of oil overheating. Absolutely perfect. Right, it's time to take those 2 caps off so that I can set the engine in the right place to test the clearances. The big hole is to put a socket in to be able to turn the engine, and the little hole is the inspection area. So if we have a look at the workshop manual, you can see there's an inspection on the side of the engine and also one in the inspection hole. And we turn counterclockwise to get to top dead centre for cylinder 1. Okay, through that inspection hole, that's what I can see. A T with a 1 above it. And over here on the cam sprocket, the 1 should be pointing directly down, but when I have a look at it, I can see the mark for 1 is directly up. And so just double checking that on cylinder 1, which is on the left, you can see there's no movement on those tappets. So I need to move the engine another 360 degrees to get it in the right place. By the way, I haven't bothered taking out the spark plugs. I found that I can turn the engine over without having to do that. Now that I've moved 360, okay, you can see that I can woggle each one of those tappets. So now what are the clearances? 17 and 28. It's important to get the feeler gauge in nice and straight, and also you can feel whether it's really tight or really loose. And I guess that comes from experience as to whether it feels okay or whether you really need to check exactly what the gap is. But I can feel that they're just firm at the 28 mark, which is perfect because I'm allowed plus or minus 0.02 for the gaps anyway. And the same with the intake. They're perfect. So now it's just a matter of turning until number 2, top dead center. Top dead center is where the valves are completely closed, which is where the tappets shouldn't be pressing on the valves at all, and that's what this clearance is all about. And the reason why there is some clearance is because as the engine heats up, as we all know, things expand. And so there needs to be some clearance so that when the engine heats up, there's still a tiny bit of clearance so that the valves aren't left open during combustion. Oh, by the way, just let me reiterate that I'm not a mechanic. I'm just showing you how I do it, and I don't recommend you do anything yourself. You should take it to a mechanic and pay them to do it for you. While I'm here, I'm just inspecting the cam chain as well. Absolutely no movement in that. That hasn't stretched at all. Now, this is one of the things that you definitely shouldn't do, but I always have, and that's use a little bit of black silicone on the rubber. The tiniest little smear just gives me that confidence that I'm not going to get any leaks when I put it back on. Anyway, if you ignore my advice and do the work yourself, always use a workshop manual and don't rely on some idiot on YouTube to tell you how to do it. And this is a good example of why. I don't use a torque wrench other than the one built into my elbow. It's never let me down, but I would certainly not recommend anyone else doing this. Alright, we're on the home straight now. Bit of a clean up and then start to assemble. Basically just doing the opposite of disassembly, strangely enough. Once assembly is complete, it's always a good idea to just take a deep breath, relax, and then go over everything that you've put back together to make sure that you've done everything. It can be embarrassing to find that you haven't put the lower radiator hose on when you try to fill up the radiator again. Or even more stupid, the top radiator hose. I've found it takes about a litre of coolant to refill the system when I drain it this way. I did a complete coolant change not all that long ago, so I'm not bothering to do it this time. Okay, so we've got the radiator full again, and the overflow tank doesn't get affected, but you can see that it's just below the upper mark. It's all good. So put the cap back on, start the engine and bring it up to temperature. So let's have another look at the time. Just over an hour and the job's done. But while the engine's running, I just go around and make sure there's no coolant or oil leaks and everything's fine. Time has passed and I've made sure that the engine is completely cold again before I take off the radiator cap. Don't ever take the radiator cap off while the engine's hot. Even an idiot like me knows not to do that. Anyway, checking the level in the radiator again, and it's still fine, but I will check it again after a ride just to make sure there's no air bubbles that have reduced the level. So there we go, another maintenance job done. And the smug feeling of knowing that I've done it all myself.